Hey everyone! Have you ever had to wait for something you really, really wanted? It's tough, right? Well, today, we've got an amazing story about a promise from God. And let me tell you, it took a long, long time to come true. But wow, the ending was totally worth the wait.
Okay, so before we dive into the main story, let's start with a little warm-up question. It's something I bet we've all felt before.
So think about it. What's something you find super hard to wait for? Is it your birthday? A big family trip? Maybe even just for the weekend to get here? Waiting is so hard, isn't it? Our story today is all about waiting for something huge. And it shows us something amazing, that God is always, always good at keeping his promises, even when that wait feels like forever. And that leads us to our big idea for today. You ready? Here it is. I can wait patiently for God's promises to be fulfilled because God is faithful. You know, faithful is just a big word that means we can trust him completely. He always keeps his word, and we're about to meet a man named Abraham who learned this incredible lesson in a really big way.
All right, let's jump right into this awesome story from the Bible. It all started with a promise from God that was so big it seemed almost impossible. So let me introduce you to Abram and his wife, Sarai. They loved God a whole lot, but they had a deep sadness in their hearts. See, they were getting older, and the one thing they wanted more than anything else was to have a child, but they didn't have any. Then, one day, God showed up with a promise that was about to change, well, everything. God took Abram outside and told him to look up at the night sky. He said, "Go on, try to count the stars. Can you even do it?" And then God said, "That's how big your family is going to be." Whoa, can you even imagine that? A family with more people than all the stars you could possibly count? That is one huge promise. And get this, to help them remember this giant promise, God gave them new names. How cool is that? Abram became Abraham, which means father of a multitude, like a whole crowd of people. And Sarai became Sarah, which means princess. So now, every single time someone said their name, it was like a little reminder of the big, amazing thing God was going to do. But here's the thing. Abraham and Sarah had to wait, and wait, and wait. Years went by. They just kept getting older, and still no baby. Then on a super hot, ordinary day, something totally unexpected happened. They got some visitors. So Abraham sees these three travelers, and he doesn't just wave. He runs to greet them. That tells you a lot about him, right? He was so kind and welcoming. He immediately offered them water for their tired feet and a nice place to rest, and he got a meal ready for them right away. But these weren't just any guys passing by. No way. Abraham quickly realized one of them was the Lord himself, in disguise. And God said the promise again, but this time he gave a deadline. He said about this time next year, Sarah is going to have a son. Now Sarah was inside the tent, and she heard what he said. And she laughed, not out loud, but to herself. Can you blame her? She was probably thinking, a baby. For me, I'm 90 years old. After waiting for so long, it just sounded completely impossible. But God knew she laughed, and he asked this really important question, not just for Sarah, but for all of us. He said, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Wow, what a question. It's this perfect reminder that for God, the word impossible just doesn't exist. So the big question is, did God's impossible promise actually come true? You bet it did. Let's find out what happened. Okay, so when the promise finally happened, Abraham was 100 years old. And Sarah, she was 90. This wasn't just, a special baby. This was a flat-out 100% miracle from God. And yep, 1 year later, exactly like God said, the sound of a baby crying finally filled their home. The promised baby was here. God did it. He kept his promise. So what did they name this miracle baby? God told them his name would be Isaac. And you'll never guess what Isaac means. It means to laugh. Isn't that just perfect? Just think about it for a second. Sarah laughed 2 times in this story. Her first laugh was a laugh of doubt, kind of like, yeah, right, this is impossible. But that second laugh, the one when she was holding her baby boy Isaac, that was a laugh of pure joy. That was a, wow, God really did the impossible kind of laugh. And here's the part that's so important for us to get. This isn't just some old story that happened a long time ago. Nope. God is still in the business of keeping his promises today, for you and for me. Let me tell you about a woman from India named Ruchi. This is a true story. For years and years, her heart was broken because she couldn't have a baby. But then, she heard the story of Abraham and Sarah, and it gave her so much hope. She started trusting Jesus and praying. And you know what? After 4 years of waiting and praying, God answered her prayer. She had a baby girl, and then even another child after that. See? God is still faithful, right now, today. Okay, this brings us to our memory verse. It's a really good one. It says, "Let us hold fast, for he who promised is faithful." Hold fast just means to grab on tight and don't let go. We can hold on to God's promises with all our might because the one who made the promise, he is faithful. We can count on him. So, as we wrap things up, I have one last question for you to think about. What promise from God can you trust today? Maybe it's something you've been praying about for a while. Or maybe it's the biggest promise of all, the promise that one day Jesus is coming back for us. Just like God was faithful to Abraham and Sarah, and just like he was faithful to Ruchi, we can know for sure that he will be faithful to us too.